Hi everyone. Let's do another multi-view. I'll do it for you. I'm going to do this just to show you how we choose how to draw multi-view and how we use center lines and hidden lines. So the object that we've got here is called a stop block. And I'm going to work through this thing. Now, how many views do we need to draw? Remember, each feature must appear visible at least once. So the best overall description of this thing would be looking at it from this direction. So we've got an L shape here with a little wedge cut into it. Notice the wedge is higher than the base. It goes all the way to the top. We can see this L shape and this hole and this wedge from the front view. We cannot see the wedge shape, the holes in the base from the front. So we're going to have to draw the top view to be able to see that. That's going to help on that one as well. And lastly, we do need to draw the right side because of this T shape here. It's going to be important to be able to see that. So we've got to draw three views because we need to see this and this from the front, the holes from the top, and the T shape from the right side. So let's get started. So this object, the width of the object, remember we're always going to put 1 inch between the views. This object is 4 inches wide if we add the 1 and the 3. So I'm going to start with the line command. I'm going to go over 4 inches. Okay. Now I'm going to go up, and now if you look at our picture over here, this base is 1/4 inch tall. Up to the top of the wedge is 1.5 inches. I'm going to just go up the 1/4 inch for now, 0.25. Now I could go ahead and draw a box, and I could draw it 1.5 inches tall, but I'm going to do it this way to start with. I'm going to draw the L shape. The far edge of this L, this big thick piece, is 1 inch wide, so I'm going to go back this direction 3 inches. Then I'm going to go up. I've already come up 1/4. The overall height is 1.5, so I'm going to come up 1.25. And that's going to give me my 1.5. Then I'll hover here to get my back piece and back down to there. So there's my L shape. Now, the T shape that we can see here, this little wedge shape, goes up another 1/4 inch. So I'm going to click on line again. I'm going to come right here, click and go up, and I'm going to go up 0.25. Oops, look what happened. My line's at an angle. Anytime you're inside a command, if you do something like that by accident, just hit the undo button down here. And it still stays where it's at, but it takes that part off. So 0.25, now it's vertical. And now it goes back to this corner. So there's my wedge. The last thing I need to draw on my front view is my hole, the circle. It's 1/2 inch in, and it's 1 inch up. So if it's 1 inch up, that means it's 1/2 inch from the top. So it's 1/2 inch in and 1/2 inch down. So I'm going to go line command. I'm going to hover over this corner. Notice I'm not clicking. I'm going to drag across. I'm going to tell it to go over 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to come down 1/2 inch. There's the center point of that hole. Now this says through. This is an odd thing, but notice it's still got the diameter symbol out here. Through just means the hole goes all the way through it. So if you're going straight into AutoCAD, or if you're also using the AutoCAD web app, you're going to have this command, which is center radius. Remember, we can click on it, and it says specify center point, so I click on my center point. Now, if I want to, I can change to diameter. At this point in time, my diameter is 0.75 because it's 3/4 of an inch. So that is now in the right place. Now, everything that I've drawn, if you've noticed, has been drawn in the object layer. Okay? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get rid of this line here this time. Before we've left it, but I'm going to get rid of it this time. Okay, so there is my front view, just my visible lines. Now let's go over to my right side. Again, we want to be 1 inch off of it, so we're going to start here. We're going to come over 1 inch as our first point. Then our depth from here to here is 2 inches. So we're going to go 2 inches, and there's my depth. Now my height is still 1.5 because the height in the right side and the height in the front are the same. So I'm going to come over here and hover, and I'm going to drag across. Notice I'll get a green line vertical and a green line horizontal. That's in the correct place. Then I can come here and drag up. That'll give me my 2 inches back. And I can come back down to here, or I can hit the letter C and enter, or close and enter, and it'll do the same thing. The reason why I went ahead and drew a solid box here is because I've got my T shape, but sitting up on my T shape are these two rectangles, and of course the wedge going up and down through here. Okay? So let's get this T-shape in the right place now. We know it's a 1/2 inch tall. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the line command. I'm going to hover at this point. I'm sorry, 1/4 inch tall. I'm going to hover at this point, drag across, click, and I'm going to go all the way across and click. So there is my base. But notice that the T goes up on this also. So what we've got to do here is we've got to get this in the right place. It tells us here that it's 7/8 of an inch in and 1/4 inch wide. So I'm going to go to my line command. I'm going to hover at this point, drag across, and say 7/8. And notice I typed in 7/8 instead of 7/8. It will work. Then I'm going to drag down and click and say OK. Now I'm going to do offset. This is 1/4 of an inch thick. Notice it says specified distance. In web app, it's going to say pick an object, and then you're going to put the distance in. It's just backwards, but it works the same. So I'm going to type in 0.25 here, click, and click over. So there's my T. Now, if you notice here what we've got, this line right here, dead center, is not there. It's actually up another 1/4 inch because this is 1/2 and this is 1/4. So I'm going to go back in the line command. I'm going to hover right here and I'm going to drag up and I'm going to tell it I want it to be 0.25 higher. I'm going to click there. Now I've got that line in the right place. Now I can use the trim command. And again, remember, in the web app, all you have to do is just click here and it goes away. In AutoCAD, we have to select our cutting edges. That's what it tells us right here. I can pick them one at a time. I can pick and cross them, or I could have hit the select all button and been fine there. So there's my cutting edges. Now I hit enter, and now I click on what I want to get rid of. Now if you notice, if I look at it from the right side, I see a rectangle here for that inclined slope. Right there is the rectangle for the inclined slope. And then there's my T-shape. And look, my two rectangles, here and here, here and here, they're identical. So there are my visible edges for that. So there's my visible lines or my object lines done for the right side, my object lines or visible lines done for my front view. Now let's go do our top view. I'm going to hover, I'm going to drag up and say go 1 inch up. And then again, it's 4 inches wide. I'm just going to type in a number this time. Now this time, remember, because we're looking at the top of it, it's still front to back. It's still depth, just like it was in the right side. So it's 2 inches. So I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to type in 2 and enter. So there's that. Now I'm going to hover here, drag up, click when it gets in the right place, and click again. There it is. So that works out pretty good. Now I need to put some other stuff in here. I'm going to put this platform in here, the top of it, because it's real easy to do. I'm going to go to line. I'm going to hover here. I'm going to drag straight up until I find my intersection, click. Then I'm going to go up and click. There's that rectangle. There it is. Now I need this rectangle here, and the inclined slope. Well, we could do the very same thing. We could measure in 7/8 from the front, draw us a line, offset to 1/4 inch and do that. But I do want to show you a miter line. Now I'm going to go in, and right now, if you notice, I've got all these layers here. I'm going to create a new layer, and you can do the very same thing in the web app. You can go into your layers command, and you can create a new layer. And what you do on any of these is hover over these icons and see which one is how you create a layer. So I'm going to click on New Layer. And notice it says Layer 1. I'm going to call this Construction. And I'm going to do something here. I'm going to tell it that I want my line weight. I'm going to click on this number. I'm going to scroll up. I want it to be default, okay, because I want it really thin. And I'm going to change my color. I'm going to change it, and I'm going to pick an odd color. Now, in the web app, you're already using some colors. Some of you are, and that's fine. You can pick out any color you want to use for this as long as you call it construction. That's the big thing. I'm going to use magenta, which is the pink color in this program, and click. So now I've already got that in there. So now I'm going to close my dialog box. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say I want this to be my current layer. Now watch what I do. I'm going to go to line. I'm going to click here. I'm going to drag out. And what I want to do is I want to hover over this point and drag straight up. And now I'm going to drag down to here. Okay. What I've done is I've created me a corner. Because remember, this is the back edge of the right side. This is right here. And then this is the back edge looking at it from the top. So it's going this way. So these two, if this is the back of the object and this is the back of the object, they line up now. Now I'm going to draw me another line on this construction layer, and I'm going to draw it at 45 degrees. If you've got your orthographic tracking or your ortho tracking cut on, and it's cut on at 45, it'll automatically snap to this. Remember, in the web app, you may have to go in and check that down at the bottom of the screen. So there's my line. Now watch what I can do here. I'm going to change my layer back now. I'm going to go back to Object. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to say Line, and I'm going to hover over this point. I'm going to drag up till I get to the intersection. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag all the way over to this line. And be sure you get the X. You do not want the triangle, you want the X. Okay? I'm going to do the very same thing here. I'm going to hover. I'm going to drag up till it hits the line. And I'm going to come over till I get my X again. Make sure again that you get your X, not the triangle, because that's the midpoint of the line. Okay? Now, that is that rib going up and down there. See, from the top view, it looks like a rectangle. And again, I can go trim. This time I'm going to say select all. Remember, in web app, all you do is just cross over what you want to get rid of. But I'm going to hit the enter key, and I'm going to go click, click, and there's that. So there is my right side in my top view. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit tighter so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to go zoom in window. I'm going to get out of this command. So I'm going to say zoom by hitting the Z, and I'm going to hit the W for window. You can do the very same thing in the web app. Now I'm going to zoom in again so we can see what we're working on. There we are. So now I need to put my holes in here. There are 4 of them. Notice. 1/4 inch diameter going through the base, there's 4 holes. It may say 4x diameter 1/4. It would mean the exact same thing. So 7/16 from the right side back and 2 inches between them, and then 7/16 in. So I'm going to go to line. I'm going to hover. I'm going to drag back this way. I don't know the decimal equivalent. I don't have my chart open, so I'm just going to type in 7/16 and hit enter. Now I'm going to go up, and I'm going to say 7/16 again, which, by the way, 7/16 in 2 decimal places is 0.44. Okay? So there's the center of that hole. So now I'm going to go into circle. I'm going to go ahead and do diameter this time. I'm going to click. My diameter, we said, was 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25. There it is. This time I'm going to use the copy command. So I'm going to copy. It says select objects. I want that hole. My base point, I've hit enter. My base point, I'm going to hit the midpoint of this, the center point of the circle. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag this way. And how far over do I want it? Well, 2 inches. Now I'm going to clear that. So that's in the correct place. Now I'm going to delete that line because I don't need it. Now these holes are 1 1/8 inches apart. So I'm going to go to copy again, but this time I'm going to get both holes that I've got. I'm going to hit enter, and again, it's center point to center point, so I'm going to pick my center point of this hole. I'm going to start dragging this way, and I'm going to tell it 1.125. That's 1 1/8. I'm going to hit enter, and there they are. So there's my holes in the top view. So now I've got all my visible edges shown, everything I can see from the top. Remember, I can see the rectangle here. I can see the inclined slope there. These 2 rectangles here with the holes in them, there they are. And we've already talked about the other views. So now what we need to do is put in hidden lines. What can we not see in different views? Well, let's change our layer right now. Let's go to hidden. What I'm going to do now is this hole goes all the way through this object from the front to the back. So in the top, it goes from the front to the back. I'm going to go to line. I'm going to hover over my quadrant point, scroll up here, click, and all the way to the back. And say, okay. I can do the very same thing on the other quadrant point, or I could have copied it. Now again, look what I did. I accidentally clicked on the quadrant. Don't forget, you can either use trim or you can use the grip by clicking on it and dragging it to where you want it, and that will work fine. Every once in a while, when you hit the escape key, this line will disappear. If it does, when you do a stretch using the grips, just hit the undo button and it will come back. Okay? So there's that. Hey, that hole is also in the right side. So I'm going to hover here. I'm going to drag across till I hit here, all the way to the back. And like I said, I can use copy as well. I'm going to copy that line, hit enter. This was my original base point, that quadrant, and I can go down to that quadrant, and that puts it in the right place. So there's those. Now we need our holes down here in the front view. These 4 holes, we can't see them down here in the base. So again, These line up, so all I need to do is quadrant. I'm going to hover on this side quadrant, drag straight down. Need to sit there just a second longer. Now drag straight down, click, and click. And now instead of drawing multiples, what you want to do here, I am going to go to copy. I'm going to copy that, and that's the line that I want to copy. So I'm going to hit enter after I select it. I'm going to pick the quadrant, the quadrant, the quadrant of the other hole, the quadrant of the other hole. There are those 4 lines. And they represent both sets of holes because they're one behind the other. Now I need the exact same thing here. So how am I going to get them there? Well, again, I can go to line. I can hover here, drag across, click, and drag down. Okay. Now that line is really long, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on it. I'm going to grab that blue grip, and I'm going to drag it down to where it belongs. Now this time I'm going to use my offset command. I'm going to say offset. These holes are 1/4 of an inch in diameter, so I'm going to say 0.25 is my distance. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to drag across. So there we go. That's in the right place. Okay. Now I need 2 more back here. The best thing to do in a case like this would be to go on your line command, hover here, drag across, click, drag down, and we'll repeat the very same process. So now that I've got that, I can get out of that command. Again, say copy, copy that. Now I could use offset or copy. I'm clicking, here's my base point using this, and I want to go over 0.25, and it will put it in the right place. So there's my hidden lines, all where they're supposed to be. Now I need center lines. So I'm going to change into my center layer. Now remember, if you accidentally draw on the object layer, you can always change it by clicking on the line. Let me do that and show you that mistake. Okay, so let's leave it on hidden because that was the layer I was drawing on. So go to line, and I click here, and I click here, and that's when I realized, uh-oh, I drew that as a hidden line. All I have to do is click on it, and in AutoCAD, I go to here, to my layers, and change it to center. Okay? Notice it looks like a solid line. Now in the web app, you have to do that in the properties box, P-R-O-P box, and you can change the layer from object to center. Okay? Notice when I click on that, or hidden to center, notice when I click on it, it now says center up here for me in this. Okay? Look, no break, no long dash, short dash, long dash. What we're going to do in a case like this is we have to make this line longer. And remember, AutoCAD, the line has to be a certain length before it will physically put the breaks in it. I'm going to click on my line, grab my grip and drag out, and I'm going to tell it to go 0.25 out. It put my break in it. When I click here and drag out, 0.25 out. Now remember, in the web app, it wants to do overall length of the line. The best way to do it in the web app, I'm going to undo those 2 lines. This is the way I would do it in the web app, and I've done this before in just regular AutoCAD as well. I'm going to go offset, and I'm going to say 0.25 inches. I'm going to offset this circle out. Now I can go to extend, and I can pick this as my boundary. In the web app, you don't have to pick the boundary, but you will go to here, and then you'll have to click it again to get it to there. I'm going to hit enter, click to there, and there it is. There's my center line, and it looks like a center line. So now I can get rid of that circle. I'm just going to delete it. Now, how am I going to get my vertical one? Well, I could have left that circle there if I hit undo, and I could have just said, you know, make sure I'm in my center line this time so I don't have to change it. Now I could just go line and click here, and it'll automatically be the right length. The other thing that I could have done, I'm going to get rid of the circle this time, is I could have used the mirror command and mirrored it on a 45-degree angle. So click on it. I've selected my object, hit enter, specify my mirror point, the center of my center line. Now I'm going to drag out on a 45-degree angle. I'm going to click again. And do I want to erase my source objects? No. So there's my center line. Okay? So that's got that in the right place. Pretty neat trick when you think about it. Okay? Now if we go to center line up here for these, notice what happens. I'm going to automatically say offset. It remembers my 0.25. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now I'm going to tick on this circle and go out. Okay? I'm in my center layer. I'm going to say line from this quadrant to here. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and do this quadrant to here. Notice it does not break the line. Well, that's just the way that works because AutoCAD will not break that line. It's confusing, I know. In regular AutoCAD, we can click on line weight and see that it's a thinner line. It's what it's supposed to be. You don't have that luxury in the web app, but if you open that very drawing that you did in the web app in a regular AutoCAD program, you could do that. So it just doesn't show it in the web app. So there's that. Now, why don't I just go ahead and copy this and hit enter. I'm going to copy it from the center of the circle to the center of the circle to the center of the circle to the center of the circle. How about that? There it is. So that's got those exactly where they need to be. Now, if you notice what I've got down here in this view, I'm going to hit escape. I need to have a center line here. Same thing. I could go offset a quarter here and draw my line the right length, but I've got to get it in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say line command. I'm going to hover here, and I'm going to drag it all the way down to here and click and put it in. I've done this in the center layer. Now, like I said, if you're using the web app, use that offset command, make sure 1/4 of an inch. So hit enter, go up and go down like that. In AutoCAD, I could just grab the blue grip and it's really easy to just go out 1/4 of each way. Now I'm going to use extend command again. I'm going to extend it both ways. Okay. So now I can get rid of these. Now look what I've got to do. I need one of these right here. Hey, I need one over here also. But if I use the copy command, I can click on that line as what I want to copy and hit enter. I'm going to use the left-hand side of the hole. So I'm going to click again, left-hand side of the hole, click again, left-hand side of the hole, click again, left-hand side of the hole. How about that? The only thing I've got left is my center line for my big hole going through the top and through the right side. So I'm going to say line command. We'll hover off this endpoint and drag up and go to here. And I'm going to do the very same thing here. We'll hover off the endpoint, drag across, and drag across. And again, now we would need to use the offset command and stretch it 1/4 of an inch each way in the web app. In this program, in AutoCAD, I'm just going to grab the blue grip, drag up, and say 0.25. Grab the blue grip, drag down, say 0.25, and do the same thing here. And hit my escape button. So at that point, the only thing I've got that doesn't need to be there are my construction lines. I can do one of two things. I can either click on them all and delete them or erase them, or I could just come to my layers button and say, you know what, cut that layer off. And there is the completed drawing with correct hidden lines, center lines, object lines, everything where it needs to be. Everything's on the correct layer. Make sure that you say that you've saved this, you know, when you're doing a drawing. Of course, you're not doing this drawing. I just did this one as an example. But make sure that you're saving your drawing as the correct name. Don't save it as template, because if you do, you've messed up your template. And you'll need to go out and get another one off the Haiku page. Okay? All right, so that's how you use center lines and hidden lines. I hope that helps. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.